They killed him, not just a man, not just a leader. They killed the very heartbeat of Earth. Chancellor Elian Ward wasn't merely a politician. He was a symbol, an unshakable wall against chaos. The voice that silenced centuries of division. The dreamer who dared to point humanity beyond the stars. He had ended wars where none thought peace possible. He had united rival nations who once spat on the idea of unity. And for the first time in history, billions of humans, from the bustling towers of New York to the far-off colonies on Mars, believed in the same vision. And then, in one merciless strike, that vision was set on fire. The assassination wasn't quiet. It wasn't hidden in shadows. No, the Galactic Council wanted every human eye to witness their cruelty. Elian Ward stood at the podium, addressing billions in what was supposed to be a moment of triumph. Humanity had just secured its place among the stars. Treaties were being signed, exploration fleets were preparing to launch, and Earth was finally ready to step proudly into the galaxy. And then, mid-sentence, the feed shattered. The broadcast, seen in every home, every city square, every ship drifting in orbit, dissolved into static. People leaned closer to their screens, confused. But confusion became horror when the static cleared, not to Elian's face, but to a symbol. The emblem of the Galactic Council, glowing blood red, stamped across the feed like a brand of ownership. And beneath it, 4 words seared themselves into history. Know your place. Earth. Imagine it. Children watching from classrooms, mothers clutching their infants, soldiers stationed at outposts light years away, all staring at the same burning emblem. For a moment, the world froze. And then came the truth. Word spread faster than fire in dry grass. The Chancellor was dead. Not by human hands, not by accident, but by alien design. The Council had murdered him, the man who had been called the bridge between stars. Gone. Panic swept first. Crowds screamed in disbelief. Markets collapsed. Governments scrambled, uncertain whether war was already upon them. For the first time in decades, Earth trembled. That was exactly what the Council wanted. But something unexpected happened. Where fear was supposed to grow, rage took root. The streets did not stay filled with weeping. They filled with roaring voices. From the skyscrapers of Tokyo to the dusty mining domes on Mars, from Antarctic research stations to orbiting colonies, the cry was the same. They killed him. They killed our leader. And then something shifted, something the galaxy had never predicted. Humanity united, not in despair, but in wrath. People who had once argued over politics, territory, and petty differences now stood shoulder to shoulder, eyes blazing with the same fury. Soldiers volunteered by the millions. Engineers left behind peaceful work to forge weapons. Even the quiet ones, the scholars, the doctors, the farmers swore they would contribute to the storm that was coming. The Council thought they had silenced Earth. Instead, they had lit a fire no water could quench. And as the flames of anger spread, a chilling thought whispered in the minds of every human. If they can strike down our leader so easily, who will they take next? Our children, our homes, our entire planet. The Council believed they had delivered a warning. They thought humanity would kneel, but each human heart that burned with grief now pulsed with defiance. The assassins didn't just kill one man. They created something far more dangerous. They created humanity's wrath, and that wrath would not stop. Not until every alien fleet that dared to raise a hand against Earth was scattered to dust among the stars. What the Council failed to understand was simple. Humanity's history was forged in fire, blood, and endless struggle. Empires had risen and fallen, tyrants had come and gone. Wars had scarred the Earth, and yet, every time humanity had risen stronger. Now, the entire galaxy would learn that lesson, because this was not the end of humanity's story. It was only the beginning. They thought we would bow. The Galactic Council believed Earth would break, that without its leader, humanity would stumble back into weakness. To them, the Chancellor was the glue that held us together. Remove him, they thought, and the cracks would reappear. The nations would fight, the colonies would turn on each other, and Earth would be too busy drowning in its own chaos to rise again. But they didn't understand us. They didn't understand what happens when you wound humanity's heart. Billions cried out, not in sorrow, but in fury. Streets that once held morning candles now thundered with chants of vengeance. Tears hardened into resolve. Even those who had never cared for politics, who had barely known Chancellor Ward's name, now shouted it as though it was carved into their very souls. His assassination was not just the death of a man, it was the attempt to murder hope itself, and humanity does not forgive that kind of crime across the world. Leaders who once bickered over borders stood on the same stage, raising their voices together. Rival governments signed treaties overnight, not because they suddenly loved one another, but because they shared one burning truth. Humanity will not kneel. But words weren't enough. Words could not quench the fury. Action had to follow. Factories roared to life, not with the quiet hum of peace, but with the grinding steel of war. The same assembly lines that once produced cars now spat out armored vehicles. Shipyards that had once built passenger vessels began reforging them into carriers of death. Every scientist who had once dreamed of peaceful exploration now bent their minds toward weapons. Every engineer asked themselves, not how can this save lives, but how can this end theirs? The Alien Council expected weakness. Instead, they created obsession. Families that had never sent anyone to war now marched together into recruiting stations. Farmers donated their land to build training fields. Doctors and nurses volunteered for frontline service ships. Students barely old enough to vote lined up. The cry that echoed from Earth to Mars to Titan was the same. We will not forget. We will not forgive. Even the old and frail found ways to fight. Some became instructors, teaching new generations the lessons of past wars. Others joined resistance groups, spreading information, keeping morale alive. Humanity was becoming something terrifying to the Council, unified. And unity, forged in fury, is unstoppable. The galaxy had seen humanity as a fractured species, always at war with itself. What they didn't know was that those very wars had prepared us for this. We had been tempered like steel in fire, where other civilizations had grown complacent in millennia of peace. Humanity had clawed its way up through blood, through disaster, through struggle. We were used to suffering. We were used to pain, and pain was fuel. Every image of the Chancellor's final moment replayed like a spark thrown into dry grass. Every reminder of the alien emblem that had mocked us on our own screens became gasoline poured on the fire. And the fire spread. On the streets, voices grew louder. On the colonies, fists slammed against metal tables in outrage. On the orbital stations, soldiers whispered vows that chilled even their commanders. Humanity wasn't just angry. Humanity was transforming. The aliens had meant the assassination as a warning, a display of dominance. Instead, it became the very reason humanity refused to ever bend. The Council had wanted to make Earth fear. Instead, they had created something that no empire, no fleet, no galaxy had ever truly faced before. A species united in wrath. They had no idea what was coming, because this was no ordinary rebellion. This was no small protest that could be crushed under the heel of alien power. No, this was the awakening of a predator they had thought was tame. And predators, once unleashed, do not stop until the threat is gone. The fire that began with the death of one man was now burning in the hearts of billions. It would not stop. It could not stop. The galaxy thought it had silenced humanity. But in truth, it had only given humanity something it had long been searching for, a single purpose. And when humanity finds purpose, when it unites behind one unshakable goal, there is nothing in the universe that can stand against it. This was the moment the Council failed to see. The moment when Earth's sorrow became Earth's fury. The moment when humanity's wrath was born. And once born, it would never die. The galaxy thought humanity would crumble under grief. Instead, we sharpened ourselves into steel. The death of Chancellor Elian Ward had not broken us, it had reforged us. His blood was the spark, and the fire it ignited swept across every city, every colony, every outpost of humankind. Where despair might have grown, something else bloomed instead. Obsession. Obsession with survival. Obsession with vengeance. Obsession with building something so powerful that the galaxy would never dare touch Earth again. Factories became forges of war in Detroit. The old automotive lines roared back to life, not to make cars, but to craft armored troop carriers with plating thick enough to shrug off alien plasma fire. In Shanghai, massive foundries lit the night sky, birthing hulls of starships that could carry entire divisions. On the moon, robotic arms worked without pause, assembling warships like clockwork, each one larger, stronger, more brutal than the last. Mars became humanity's anvil. Its dusty red plains, once dotted with quiet colonies, erupted into weapon foundries. Giant cannons, capable of hurling projectiles at near-light speed, were tested in secret craters. Engineers there didn't care about elegance or beauty. Every weapon was built with one purpose: to kill alien fleets. And above Earth, orbiting stations were stripped of their civilian comforts and reforged into command hubs. The stars that once represented exploration now became symbols of war. Humanity had turned the heavens themselves into a battlefield. The transformation wasn't just physical, it was spiritual. Every scientist who had once dreamed of discovering new life among the stars now whispered the same promise: we will not be prey. We will be predators. Mathematicians bent their minds not on theory, but on calculating trajectories of supermass drivers. Biologists shifted from studying alien ecosystems to designing medical enhancements for soldiers. Even artists laid down their brushes to pick up plasma rifles, saying they would paint their legacy with courage on the battlefield. Humanity's wrath was no longer just an idea, was becoming a fleet. The first ships rolled out, and they were nothing like the alien vessels we had seen. Alien ships were sleek, shimmering, built like floating works of art. Humanity's ships were jagged, armored beasts. They weren't designed to impress. They were designed to survive, to crush, to endure punishment, and deliver annihilation. Forged in record time, was named Wrath of Elian. Its hull was black as midnight, its cannons longer than skyscrapers, its engines howling with the fury of billions. When it rose above Earth's atmosphere, for the first time, crowds watched in silence, tears and fire in their eyes. That ship wasn't just steel, it was vengeance given form. But ships alone weren't enough. Humanity needed soldiers. Recruitment offices overflowed. Men and women who had never held a weapon stood in line for hours just to sign their names. They weren't asked if they wanted to fight. They were asked how soon they could start training. Even those unfit for combat begged to serve, building, cooking, designing, repairing. Every hand became part of the war machine. On Earth, children grew up faster. They no longer played games of peace. They played at being soldiers, mimicking battles, chanting the Chancellor's name like a battle cry. Entire generations were raised with one truth hammered into their souls. The galaxy killed our leader. Now we rise as one. And humanity did not rise slowly. No, we rose like a storm. In a single year, Earth achieved what the galaxy thought impossible. Fleets of warships patrolled the solar system. Colonies, once vulnerable, now bristled with cannons. Soldiers drilled day and night, their eyes hardened, their voices echoing the same oath: "No star shall hide those who murdered our leader." The Council had underestimated us. They thought humanity needed centuries to catch up. But fury is a faster teacher than peace. Rage builds faster than patience. And humanity, with its back to the wall, built faster than any civilization had ever dared. The galaxy called us reckless. The galaxy called us desperate. But what they didn't understand was that desperation makes monsters, and humanity, forged in the furnace of grief, was becoming the monster the galaxy feared most. We had risen from ashes. We had become steel. And the fire that forged us was still burning, hotter every day. The question wasn't if humanity would strike back. Only question was when. The galaxy laughed at us. When Earth declared war. The Council dismissed it as nothing more than noise. To them, we were children screaming at the stars, armed with toys compared to their ancient fleets. They had crushed rebellions before, silenced countless worlds that dared to defy them. Humanity, in their eyes, would be no different. So they came. The first alien fleet entered the Sol system with banners of arrogance. 50 warships, shimmering with energy shields, cruisers armed with plasma lances, dreadnoughts towering like floating fortresses. To them, it wasn't war, it was an execution. The aliens expected Earth's defenses to crumble in hours, perhaps minutes. They thought humanity would fall to its knees, begging for mercy. But humanity was waiting. We didn't hide. We didn't beg. We met them head-on. The sky above Neptune lit up first. The Terran Defense Armada, barely a year old, rose from the black void like an iron storm. Dozens of warships emerged from behind Neptune's shadow, engines burning blue, railguns charged. They weren't sleek, they weren't beautiful, but they were ready to kill. At the spearhead of the fleet stood the wrath of Elian, humanity's first true flagship. Its cannons glowed with charged energy, its armor bristled with defiance. Painted across its hull were words every alien could read. "Remember Elian." The alien commander laughed when he saw our ships. He broadcast to the entire fleet, mocking us. "Primitive, rusting iron, they dare call these warships." His laughter echoed through alien channels, but the laughter died the moment the first shot was fired. Humanity struck first. From the wrath of Elian, a railgun fired a slug of tungsten the size of a bus, accelerated to a fraction of light speed. It tore through the void faster than any plasma lance could travel. The alien shields flared, groaned, then shattered like glass. The slug slammed straight through the alien dreadnought's core, splitting it open in a flash of fire. The galaxy's finest ship, destroyed in the first shot. Silence gripped the alien fleet. Silence gripped the galaxy, watching from afar. No one had expected it. No one had imagined it. Humanity had drawn first blood, and we did not stop. Every Terran ship opened fire. Railguns thundered like gods of war. Missiles streaked across the void. Kinetic weapons ripped through alien shields like paper. Where the aliens had relied on elegance, we relied on brutality. Where they valued finesse, we unleashed raw, overwhelming force. The battle above Neptune was chaos, but chaos favored humanity. Our ships weren't graceful dancers in space, they were brawlers, built to take a hit and keep hitting harder. Alien plasma lances burned into our hulls, but our armor held, and every time one of our ships staggered, it retaliated with a blow that sent another alien vessel spinning into ruin. The aliens began to panic. For centuries, no one had resisted them like this. Their commanders barked orders, but their fleets faltered. Every human pilot fought with the fury of 1,000 voices, screaming for vengeance. Every shot fired carried the weight of Elian Ward's memory. The second alien dreadnought fell. Then a third. The void burned with wreckage. For the first time in generations, the Galactic Council's armies knew fear. And then came the moment that would be etched into history forever. The alien commander, desperate, targeted the wrath of Elian. Plasma fire rained upon it, lighting its hull with flame, but the ship did not break. Instead, its engines roared, pushing forward through the firestorm, closing the distance like a predator stalking prey at point-blank range. The wrath of Elian fired its main cannon. The alien flagship, the pride of their fleeter, upted in silence, shattered into glowing fragments. One moment it was there, towering, untouchable. The next, it was nothing but drifting ash. The battle was over. Of 50 alien ships, less than a dozen limped away, retreating into the void. The rest floated in ruins, silent monuments to their arrogance. Humanity had stood against the galaxy's finest and sent them fleeing, and when the news spread, when billions of humans saw the wreckage burning in Neptune's orbit, one truth echoed louder than anything else. Humanity was no longer prey. The galaxy had underestimated us. They had laughed at us. But on that day, in the cold shadow of Neptune, the laughter died, because Earth had not only survived its first encounter, Earth had won. Victory at Neptune wasn't enough. Yes, we had destroyed the alien fleet. Yes, we had forced the galaxy to take notice. But deep inside, we all knew the truth. Humanity had only survived its first battle. The Council's armies were vast. Their fleets numbered in the tens of thousands. Neptune had been a taste, a warning, a scratch on their armor. The real war was still coming, and humanity needed something more. Brute force alone wouldn't win against civilizations that had ruled the stars for millennia. Our railguns and armor had worked once, but what about when they returned with weapons stronger, fleets larger, technology we hadn't even imagined? To win, humanity had to evolve. We had to become something the galaxy had never seen before. And so, from the secret labs buried deep beneath the Martian soil, from the think tanks hidden on Europa, from the minds of scientists who refused to sleep, came a weapon unlike any other. They called it the Neural Fury Protocol. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't a bomb. It was something far more dangerous. It was a bond between human and machine. The idea was simple, terrifying, and brilliant. A pilot would no longer just control their starfighter. Through the protocol, they would become one with it. Neural links would fuse man and metal together, turning reflexes into lightning, instincts into targeting systems, thoughts into maneuvers. The ship wouldn't respond to orders. It would respond to emotion, to willpower, to rage. At first, many feared it. To tie a human mind so closely to a war machine was madness. Would pilots lose themselves? Would they even come back from battle human at all? But when the first test began, fear turned to awe. The pilot entered the Neural Fury chamber, trembling. She was young, barely 20, and had never flown anything more dangerous than a training drone. The scientists strapped her in, connected the neural nodes, whispered prayers under their breath. Then the machine lit up. The starfighter outside didn't just move, it came alive. It danced across the vacuum as though the laws of physics had bent to its will. It dodged simulated plasma fire before the system even fired. It destroyed targets before human eyes could even register them. And when the simulation ended, the young pilot stepped out of the chamber, not trembling, not broken, but smiling, eyes burning with something the scientists had never seen before. She said only one thing: "I felt invincible." And in that moment, humanity knew it had found its answer. The Neural Fury Protocol spread like wildfire. Pilots volunteered by the thousands, eager to merge with their machines, to become more than human. The Council had numbers. They had centuries of dominance. But now, humanity had demons of war. Every fighter equipped with the protocol became a storm in space. Ships didn't just turn, they curved like living creatures, weaving through enemy fire as though death itself couldn't touch them. Railgun slugs weren't fired with calculations. They were fired with instinct, with rage, with the sharp clarity of vengeance. Battles that should have been unwinnable were turned in minutes by a handful of Fury pilots tearing through fleets that outnumbered them 10-1. The aliens were horrified. For centuries, they had fought predictable wars, tactics, strategies, numbers. That was how battles were won. But humanity was different. With the Neural Fury Protocol, battles weren't predictable anymore. Our ships moved like predators. Our pilots fought like possessed beings, their rage guiding every strike. The aliens began whispering a name for them, the Wrathburn, and behind every victory, behind every alien fleet that broke and fled, the same chilling question spread through the council chambers. If this is what humanity creates in just 1 year of war, what will they become in 10? The protocol wasn't just a weapon, it was a message. It said to the galaxy, humanity would not just fight with steel. We would fight with soul, with fury, with every ounce of rage they had unleashed in us. And the more the aliens struck, the more that fury grew. The council had thought they were fighting a species barely ready for the stars. Instead, they had awakened something far more dangerous, a species that could merge mind, machine, and wrath into a weapon no empire could contain. The Neural Fury Protocol was humanity's answer to fear, and the galaxy would soon learn that there is nothing more terrifying than a human who refuses to die. The council believed Neptune was a fluke. They convinced themselves that humanity's first victory was nothing more than luck and accident, a desperate strike by a primitive species that had caught them off guard. So they gathered more fleets, larger fleets, armies that had once enslaved entire civilizations. They came in waves, swarming like locusts, confident that numbers alone would drown Earth's fire. But they had forgotten what humanity had become. We weren't the prey anymore. We were hunters. And hunters don't fear numbers, they welcome them. The first great campaign began at Vega Prime. The planet was a jewel of the Council, fortified with centuries of alien technology, its skies filled with defensive satellites, its surface bristling with cannons. The Council believed Vega Prime untouchable, a symbol of their eternal power. But when the Terran Armada arrived, the symbol crumbled. Human fury pilots ripped through the skies like storms given flesh. Alien ships tried to hold formation, but they were outmaneuvered at every turn. Railgun slugs shredded shields. Missiles chased down fleeing craft like wolves hunting sheep. When the first human soldiers landed on Vega's soil, the aliens thought hand-to-hand combat would favor them. After all, their species were larger, stronger, more adapted to war. They were wrong. Human Marines fought with a ferocity that left even their commanders stunned. Every punch, every strike, every bullet carried centuries of anger, generations of defiance. They fought not for territory, not for conquest, but for vengeance. Alien soldiers twice the size of humans fell screaming beneath blades, beneath the unstoppable wrath of warriors who refused to lose. The fortress of Vega Prime collapsed in less than a week. The galaxy gasped. Then came Zinar. IV.ZYNAR was different, home to reptilian warriors bred for war, a species that had once been unleashed as shock troops against dozens of worlds. The Council sent them against humanity, certain that these beasts would crush us. Instead, Zinar became a nightmare for them. Humanity didn't just fight with guns. We fought with tactics honed across centuries of endless conflict. Guerrilla warfare, ambushes, traps. Every lesson from Earth's bloody history was unleashed on Zinar's battlefields. In jungles of crimson leaves and swamps of black water, human squads moved like shadows, striking hard and vanishing. Entire regiments of reptilian warriors fell to invisible enemies they couldn't even track. When the humans finally revealed themselves, it was not as prey, but as executioners. The reptilian armies broke. The The shock troops that had terrified half the galaxy were left cowering in their bunkers, begging for mercy that never came. The galaxy's armies fell one by one. Andromeda's human fleets turned orbital defense rings into flaming wreckage. Asterian marines stormed icy strongholds, their breath freezing in the air as they tore alien soldiers from their hiding places. On Corvanus, humanity fought for 30 days in brutal trench combat, turning every crater into a graveyard until the last alien commander surrendered. Each battle carried the same truth: humanity did not break, even when outnumbered, even when outgunned, even when alien weapons burned holes through our ships. Humanity fought harder, struck back fiercer, bled deeper until the enemy could no longer stand, and the galaxy began to understand. They had thought humanity's wrath was a spark. They thought it would burn briefly, then fade. But they were wrong. It wasn't a spark. It was wildfire. And wildfire does not fade, it consumes. Alien commanders whispered in fear of the Fury pilots, calling them ghosts of vengeance. Alien soldiers began to flee before battles even started, their courage broken by stories of humans who fought like demons and ships that moved like living predators. Entire fleets refused to answer the Council's call, afraid they too would be erased. The once proud armies of the galaxy were no longer conquerors. They were prey, and humanity hunted them across the stars. Every world we liberated, every fleet we destroyed, every fortress we tore down was a message carved into fire, into steel, into blood. You killed our leader. Now we kill your armies. By the time the campaigns ended, the galaxy's war machine was shattered. Its fleets lay in ruins. Its armies were ashes. The Council, once untouchable, was left trembling in their ivory chambers. They had thought they could silence Earth, but instead, Earth's fury had silenced them. The galaxy was silent. World after world had fallen. Armies that once conquered entire civilizations now lay broken. The Council, once so proud, had been reduced to whispers and trembling hands. Their fleets burned in the void, their fortresses shattered, their warriors defeated by the very species they had mocked as primitive. And then came the broadcast. Every star system, every colony, every station, the message appeared without warning, overriding every signal, hijacking every channel. Alien leaders leaned forward in terror. Soldiers froze mid-battle. Civilians held their breath as the screens lit up. The emblem of Earth glowed bright, and then the face of Admiral Kalen appeared, the man who had once stood at Chancellor Elian Ward's side, now commander of humanity's fleets. His uniform bore the scars of war. His eyes burned with fury, but his voice was calm, to calm, the kind of calm that made even the bravest shiver. People of the galaxy, he began, his voice echoing across countless worlds. You know what you have done. You know the crime you committed. You killed our leader. You murdered the man who carried peace on his shoulders. And you believed that in killing him, you killed us. He leaned forward, gaze sharp as a blade. You were wrong. The silence that followed was heavier than cannon fire. Kellen's words weren't shouted. They didn't need to be. Every syllable carried the weight of every human who had bled, every soldier who had died, every ship that had burned in the void. You tried to break us, he continued, but instead you forged us. You tried to make us fear you, but instead you gave us something far more powerful, wrath. Behind him, the camera shifted. For a moment, the galaxy saw what lay beyond Kellen's command deck windows. Human fleets, hundreds of ships, hovered in the void like steel titans. Their guns glowed with silent threat. Their hulls bore names carved into memory. Wrath of Elian, justice eternal, fury's edge. Never again. You thought humanity was weak, divided, fragile. You thought the death of one man would silence us. But hear this. Kellen's voice dropped lower, darker, every word like a hammer strike. We are not weak. We are not divided. And we are not silent. Across alien worlds, fear rippled. Leaders who had once sneered at humanity now stared with pale faces, their claws and tentacles trembling. Soldiers who had once believed victory inevitable now looked at each other with dread. Civilians who had never even heard of Earth before whispered humanity's name like it was a curse. Kalen raised his hand. Behind him, the fleets ignited their engines in unison, filling the void with blinding light. You killed our leader, and for that, your armies are gone. Your fleets are dust. Your strongholds are ashes. We did not come to conquer. We did not come to enslave. We came for justice, and we delivered it. He paused. His words hung like a blade, suspended above the galaxy. But make no mistake, his voice grew sharper, steel cutting through silence. If you ever raise your hand against Earth again, if you ever dare to strike us, to threaten our homes, our children, our future, we will not just fight you. We will erase you. We will burn your fleets. We will level your worlds, and we will scatter your empires into the cold dust between the stars. The camera tightened on Kellen's face. His eyes burned with something primal, something unstoppable. Humanity does not forget. Humanity does not forgive. And humanity does not kneel. The broadcast ended. Across the stars, silence followed. No one dared speak. No one dared move. The council chambers, once filled with arrogance, were now tombs of fear. On every alien world, whispers spread faster than light. The humans are not prey. The humans are wrath. For the first time in history, the galaxy understood. This wasn't just another rebellious species to be crushed. This was something far worse. This was humanity's message, and it was carved in fire. The galaxy had never known fear like this. World after world had burned. Fleets had shattered. Armies had fallen. And still humanity advanced. Every attempt to crush us only forged us harder. Every battle lost by the Council became another victory carved into our history. Humanity was no longer the newcomer fumbling among the stars. Humanity had become the storm, and so the Council broke in their glittering halls. Once filled with arrogance and laughter, the alien rulers now whispered in panic. Their generals spoke of fleets annihilated in hours. Their governors begged for troops that no longer existed. Their once proud soldiers deserted in droves, unwilling to face the demons of Earth again for the first time in centuries. The Galactic Council did something unthinkable. They begged. A message went out. Across every channel, across every world, a plea for peace. They offered reparations. They offered to rebuild what had been destroyed. They promised no more interference in human affairs. They promised recognition, trade, even friendship. They promised everything because, for the first time, they had nothing else to give. the galaxy expected humanity to accept. After all, wasn't this what wars were fought for? To win concessions, to secure recognition, to earn a seat among the stars. The Council expected us to sign a treaty and step back into our place, proud but tamed. But they didn't understand. This war had never been about trade. It had never been about seats in their chambers or places. This war had been about justice, about vengeance, about showing the galaxy what happens when you strike at Earth and humanity. Remembered dot. We remembered the emblem that had burned across our screens. We remembered the words, "Know your place, Earth." We remembered Chancellor Elian Ward, his final speech cut into static, his vision for peace extinguished by alien arrogance. We remembered the billions of voices crying out in fury. And so our answer was not simple. Admiral Kalen stood once again before the fleets, his voice carried across the stars. But this time, his words were not filled with threats. They were filled with something far more terrifying: resolve. "We did not fight to sit at your table," he said. "We did not fight to beg for scraps of your mercy. We fought because you murdered our leader. We fought because you thought we would kneel. And now you see we do not kneel. We never will." The Council's envoys flinched. Some shouted, demanding Kalen accept peace. Others wept openly, terrified of what humanity would do next. But Kalen did not shout. He simply spoke, and his calmness was a blade sharper than any weapon. "Do you think this ends with your signatures? Do you think a treaty erases the blood on your hands? No, you will not dictate terms to humanity. Humanity dictates terms to you." And the terms were simple. The fleets pulled back not to conquer, not to enslave, but to watch. Humanity declared that no alien power would ever again raise its hand against Earth or any of its colonies. Not tomorrow. Not in 1,000 years. Because if they did, if they dared, humanity would return, not with anger, but with extinction. The galaxy trembled for the first time. Empires that had once ruled unchallenged felt the chains of fear on their necks. The Council was no longer master. Humanity was not its servant. Humanity was its shadow, looming above, waiting. And yet, humanity did something the galaxy could never have predicted. We did not conquer their worlds. We did not enslave their species. We did not burn their homes. We pulled back. Because humanity had not fought to become tyrants. We had not fought to rule. We had fought to prove a point. And that point was carved deep into the bones of every alien empire. Earth will never be silenced. That was the turning point. Not when humanity destroyed fleets, not when we burned fortresses, not even when we won battle after battle. The true turning point was when the galaxy understood the truth that we did not fight for power. We fought for justice, and in that moment, humanity became something far greater than a new empire. We became the warning written into the stars. Generations passed. The fires of war dimmed, but the memory never faded. Children who once clutched their mother's hands as they watched the emblem of the Council burn across their screens grew old and gray, telling their grandchildren stories of the wrath that had shaken the stars. The Chancellor's assassination had been only a moment, but that moment had rewritten the fate of an entire species. The galaxy still whispered about it. On alien worlds, parents warned their young, "Do not provoke the humans. Do not test them. Do not wake their fury. In council chambers, once filled with smug arrogance, silence reigned whenever Earth's name was spoken. The memory of shattered fleets and burning fortresses lingered like ghosts, haunting every alien leader who dared to imagine striking at humanity again, because they all knew what had happened the last time they had killed one man. And in return, humanity had erased their armies. But on Earth, the legacy was not spoken in whispers. It was carved into monuments, etched into stone and steel. Statues of Chancellor Elian Ward stood tall in every city, his eyes gazing toward the stars, not as a victim, not as a fallen leader, but as the spark that had lit the fire of unity. The people remembered him, not with sorrow, but with pride, for his death had not broken humanity. It had bound them together forever. Wars between nations, once endless, had faded into history. Humanity had been tested by something greater than itself, and in surviving, it had become something more. We were no longer a divided species. We were no longer strangers to one another. We were humanity, one people, one voice, one fury that had shaken the galaxy to its knees. And yet, humanity did not become conquerors. We did not forge an empire of chains. We did not enslave those who had feared us. That was not our legacy. Instead, we became a warning written into every star, whispered in every shadow, remembered by every race. A warning that if ever again the galaxy dared to strike at Earth, it would not face soldiers or fleets or machines. It would face the wrath of a species that had survived fire, blood, and betrayal. Land had come out stronger every time. The aliens called us many names. The Wrathburn, the Children of Fire, the Silent Warning. But the name that endured was simple: humanity. Because after the war, after the victories, after the ashes of the Council's arrogance had settled, that name itself carried power. To speak, it was to remember the fleets destroyed, the armies erased, the empires humbled. To whisper, it was to taste the fear of Neptune, the horror of Vega Prime. The despair of Xenar for humanity had carved itself into the memory of the stars, and with that memory came respect. Allies emerged, not from loyalty, but from recognition. Former enemies sent envoys, offering friendship, trade, alliances. They did not come because they loved us. They came because they understood us. They came because they knew what we were capable of if ever betrayed again. And humanity accepted, but carefully. Always watchful, always remembering, always aware that peace was fragile, but wrath was eternal. Generations later, humanity still looked up at the night sky, not with fear, but with determination. The story of Chancellor Ward, the war that followed, the fury that burned across the stars, it was not just history. It was identity. It reminded every child born on Earth, on Mars, on Titan, on distant colonies that humanity had been tested by the galaxy and had not only survived, but had triumphed. And so the legacy lived on. The galaxy had once believed humanity would kneel. Instead, we had risen. We had shown them what happens when you strike at Earth. What happens when you kill our leaders? What happens when you try to silence us? We had shown them that mankind's wrath is not a weapon you can aim. It is a storm you cannot control, a storm that does not fade. And though the battles ended, though the fleets returned home, though the weapons cooled in their forges, one truth remained unshakable. If you strike at Earth, Prepare to face mankind's wrath. That was our legacy. That was humanity's gift to the stars. And so, humanity's story burned itself into the stars. A story not of conquest, but of defiance. Not of empire, but of warning. The galaxy learned the hardest truth of all, that mankind, when united, is unstoppable. They killed one man, thinking they could silence a world. But instead, they awakened a storm that shattered armies and broke empires. And that storm will never die, because this is what humanity is. This is what humanity always will be. We fight, we endure, we rise, and the lesson left for every world, every empire, every species across the stars was simple. If you strike at Earth, prepare to face mankind's wrath. If you felt the fire of this story, if the legacy of humanity's wrath gave you chills, don't let it end here. Like this video. If you stood with Earth, comment below what you would have done if you lived in this universe. Would you be a Fury pilot, a soldier, or someone building the war machine? And most importantly, subscribe to this channel so you never miss another tale of humanity's fury among the stars. Every story we tell here is another spark, another reminder of what we are capable of. And together, we'll keep the fire burning. So share this with others who believe in the strength of mankind. Let them hear this story. Let them feel it. Let them remember that no matter how dark the galaxy becomes, humanity will always rise.